Hello and welcome back. I woke up early this morning feeling attacked and unsure, sadness, longing. I was able to shed all that, turn it around. I gave it to God and started reading this wonderful love story titled SAVITRI by Sri Aurobindo, and was able to turn it around. We're not powerless to our fears and dread and our hurts and pain that come up. We are not prisoner to that. We have the ability to overcome all that. We can change our reality with our thoughts and emotions. So that being said, I woke up in a state that was less than love and light, lacking the love and light I knew to be in everything. So I just had to stop and take some deep breaths and remind myself what reality I live in. And that is a reality filled with love and light, divine beings, male and female, wearing divine vertical meat suits, all gods and goddesses in the flesh. I was able to turn it around after remembering myself those facts. And then reading some beautiful poem or whatever it is you do, go skip down the block, do your favorite dance, sing in the shower. There's a million different ways to change that sorrow and pain, to get rid of it and transmute it to love, happiness, and light. The highest divine things that you can think of. You just have to take deep breaths. I started by taking 3 deep breaths, telling myself deep breath in while I'm breathing in, holding it, and telling myself deep breath out as I breathe it out. If I do that 3 times while I'm telling myself deep breath in, hold it, deep breath out for 5 seconds each way and in the middle, by the end of those 3 breaths, say that's 45 seconds total, maybe under a minute for sure. I've totally taken myself out of that frustration, pain, anger, longing, sadness, whatever it was that was not positive. My highest good in its nature. I'm able to transmute those negative energies and thought forms with nothing more than 3 deep breaths. And after those 3 deep breaths, I replace that negative energy or thoughts with something positive and loving, like Sri Aurobindo, Savitri, or singing my favorite song by Bobby McFerrin, Don't Worry, Be Happy Now. The landlord say your rent is late. He may have to litigate, but don't worry, to be happy. Don't worry, be happy now. So yeah, you get my drift? Catch my drift? Get the point? We're all divine. We all have the ability to shape our worlds as we see fit. We've just been doing it out of default from negativity that's thrown upon us through our society and TV and just existing in this density. It's thrown upon us everywhere we turn. And until we know that we are gods and goddesses in the flesh and have the power to transmute anything through the divine light and love that is within us all, in our heart spaces and everywhere else, everything has it. That's all there is. So, that being said, I continue reading on. We're continuing on at Book 7, the Book of Yoga, titled Canto 1, The Joy of Union, the Ordeal of Foreknowledge, of Death, in the Heart's Grief and Pain. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. So, I know people might, well, whatever. This story runs like exceedingly familiar, rings exceedingly familiar to my hero's journey, my personal life experience, especially since my third near-death experience in this life. Since I came back from that one, and I think I've told y'all several times, that's how I came across Sri Aurobindo. He was the individual in his younger form that ushered me off the cloud. Said, "You're home. This is your spirit family amongst the sages and gods and divine beings of our past and present and future, moment and now." Sri Aurobindo was the man who led me off the cloud and consoled me, talked to me, told me what was going on. And it wasn't until like 5 years after I came out of it, living my life, searching for what the true meaning of the love and light, all one, that he told me when I was on the cloud. That's what he told me. And I thought it was so odd because I was in a worldly existence, not thinking or existing in such realms of thought and being. So I came back to my earthly existence with healing, love, and light. And 5 years later, was reading a book on my spiritual path and saw the picture of the man that ushered me off the cloud. And it was none other than his divine young self, Sri Aurobindo. And I've been reading and into him, reading, searching all his literature ever since. He's one of my master spiritual soul families. He was a guide. And I'm very grateful to him and all the divine information and wisdom that I've found through him and his being, as well as the mother. That divine love. We're all one. Victory to the divine light. I continue on. Canto 1. The joy of union, the ordeal of the foreknowledge of death and the heart's grief and pain. Line 1. Fate followed her foreseen immutable road. Man's hopes and longings build the journeying wheels that bear the body of his destiny, and lead his blind will towards an unknowable goal. His fate within him shapes his acts and rules. Its face and form already are born in him. Its parentage is in his secret soul. Here matter seems to mold the body's life, and the soul follows where its nature drives. Nature and fate compel his free will's choice, but greater spirits this balance can reverse and make the soul the artist of its fate. This is the mystic truth our ignorance hides. Doom is a passage from our inborn force. Our ordeal is the hidden spirit's choice. Ananke is our being's own decree. All was fulfilled with the heart of SAVITRI. Flower sweet and adamant, passionate and calm, had chosen on her strength's unbending road, forced to its issue the long cosmic curve. Once more she set behind loud hastening hooves, a speed of armored squadrons and a voice far heard of chariots bore her from her home. A couchant earth wakened in its dumb muse, looked up at her from a vast indolence, hills wallowing in a bright haze, large lands that lulled at ease beneath the summer heavens. Region on region, spacious in the sun, cities like chrysolites in the wide blaze, and yellow rivers pacing lion-maned, led to the Shalwa marches emerald line, a happy front to iron vastness, and austere peaks and titan solitudes. Once more was near the fair and faded place, the borders gleaming with the grove's delight, where first she met the face of Satyavan, and he saw like one walking into a dream, some timeless beauty and reality. The moon gold sweetness of heaven's earthborn child, the past receded and the future neared. Far now behind lay Madra's spacious halls, the white carved pillars, the cool dim alcoves, the tinged mosaic of the crystal floors, the towered pavilions, the wind-rippled pools, and gardens humming with the murmur of bees, forgotten soon or a pale memory, the fountains splash in a white stone-bound pool, the thoughtful noontide's brooding solemn trance, the colonnades dream, gray in a quiet eve, the slow moonrise gliding in front of night. Left far behind were now the faces known, the happy silken babble on laughter's lips, and the close clinging clasp of intimate hands, and adoration's light and cherished eyes offered to the one sovereign of their life. Nature's primeval loneliness was here. Here only was the voice of a bird and beast, the aesthetic's exile in the dim-souled huge, inhuman forest far from cheerful sound, of man's blithe converse in his crowded days, in a broad eve with one red eye of cloud. Through a narrow opening, a green-flowered cleft, out of the stare of sky and soil they came, into a mighty home of emerald dusk, there onward led by a faint brooding path which toiled through the shadow of enormous trunks, and under arches misers of sunshine they saw low thatched roofs of a hermitage, huddled beneath a patch of azure hue, in a sunlit clearing that seemed the outbreak of a glad smile in the forest's monstrous heart, a rude refuge of the thought and will of man, watched by the crowding giants of the wood. Arrived in that rough-hewn homestead they gave, questioning no more the strangeness of her fate. There pride and loved one to the great blind king, a regal pillar of fallen mightiness, and the stately careworn woman once a queen, who now hoped nothing for herself from life, but all things only hoped for her one child, calling on that single head from partial fate, all joy of earth, all heaven's beatitude, adoring wisdom and beauty like a young god's. She saw him loved by heaven as by herself. She rejoiced in his brightness and believed in his fate, and knew not of the evil drawing near, lingering some days upon the forest verge like men who lengthen our departure's pain, unwilling to separate sorrowful clinging hands, unwilling to see for the last time a face. Piggy Deedles. Heavy with the sorrow of a coming day, and wondering at the carelessness of fate, who breaks with idle hands her supreme works, they parted from her with pain-fraught burdened hearts, as forced by inescapable fate we part from one whom we shall never see again, driven by the singularity of her fate. Helpless against the choice of Savitri's heart, they left her to her rapture and her doom. In the tremendous forest's savage charge, all put behind her that was once her life, and welcome to that henceforth what hit was his and her, and welcome that henceforth was his and hers. She abode with Satyavan in the wild woods, priceless she deemed her joy so close to death. Apart with love she lived for love alone. As if self-poised above the march of days, her immobile spirit watched the haste of time, a statue of passion, the invincible force, an absolution of sweet and perilous will, a tranquility and a violence of the gods, indomitable and immutable. Piggy Doodles. At first to her beneath the sapphire heavens, the sylvan solitude was a gorgeous dream, an altar of the summer's splendor and fire. The sky, excuse me. The sky-topped flower-hung palace of the gods, and all its scenes a smile on rapture's lips, and all its voices bards of happiness. There was a chanting in the casual wind. There was a glory in the least sunbeam. Night was a chrysoprase on velvet cloth, a nestling darkness on a moonlit deep. Day was a purple pageant and a hymn, a wave of the laughter of light from morn to eve. His absence was a dream of memory. His presence was the empire of a god, a fusing of the joys of earth and heaven, a tremulous blaze of nuptial rapture past, a rushing of two spirits to be one, a burning of two bodies in one flame. Opened were gates of unforgettable bliss. Two lives were locked within an earthly heaven, and fate and grief fled from that fiery hour. But soon now failed the summer's ardent breath, and throngs of blue-black clouds crept through the sky, and rain fled sobbing over the dripping leaves, and storm became the forest's titan voice. Then listening to thunder's fatal crash, and the fugitive pattering footsteps of the showers, and the long unsatisfied panting of the wind, and sorrow muttering in the sound-vexed night, the grief of all the world came near to her. Night's darkness seemed her future's ominous face. The shadow of her lover's doom arose, and fear laid hands upon her mortal heart. The moment swift and ruthless raced alarmed. Her thoughts, her mind remembered Narad's date. A trembling moved accountant of her riches, she reckoned the insufficient days between. A dire expectancy knocked at her breast. Dreadful to her were the footsteps of the hours. Grief came, a passionate stranger, to her gate. Banished when in his arms out of her sleep, it rose at morn to look into her face. Vainly she fled into abysmith of bliss. From her pursuing foresight of the end, the more she plunged into love, that anguish grew. Her deepest grief from sweetest gulfs arose. Remembrance was a poignant pang she felt. Each day a golden leaf torn cruelly out. From her too slender book of love and joy, thus swaying in a strong gust of happiness, and swimming in foreboding's somber waves, and feeding sorrow and terror with her heart. For now they sat among her bosom's guest, or in her inner chamber paced apart. Her eyes stared blind into the future's night. Out of her separate self she looked and saw, moving amid the unconscious faces loved. In mind a stranger thought, in heart so near, the ignorant smiling world go happily by, upon its way towards an unknown doom, and wondered at the careless lives of men, as if in different worlds they walked, though close. They confident of the returning sun, they wrapped the little hourly hopes in tasks. She in her dreadful knowledge was alone, the rich and happy secrecy that once enshrined her as if in a silver bower, apart in a bright nest of thoughts and dreams, made room for tragic hours of solitude and lonely grief that none could share or know. A body seeing the end too soon of joy, and the fragile happiness of its mortal love, her quiet visage still and sweet and calm. Her graceful daily acts were now a mask. In vain she looked upon her depths to find a ground of stillness and the spirit's peace. Still veiled from her was the silent being within, who sees life's drama pass with unmoved eyes, supports the sorrow of the mind and heart, and bears in human breast the world and fate. A glimpse or flashes came, the presence was hid. Only her violent heart and passionate will were pushed in front to meet the immutable doom. Defenseless, nude, bound to her human lot, they had no means to act, no way to save. These she controlled, nothing was shown outside. She was still to them the child they knew and loved. The sorrowing woman they saw not within, no change was in her beautiful motions seen. A worshipped empress all once vied to serve. She made herself the diligent serf of all, nor separated the labor of broom and jar and well. Of altar and kitchen, no slight task allowed to others that her woman's strength might do. In all her acts a strange divinity shone. Into a simplest movement she could bring a oneness with earth's glowing robe of light. That's my baby. A lifting up of common acts by love. All love was hers, and its one heavenly cord bound all to all with her golden tie. But when her grief to the surface pressed too close, these things once gracious adjuncts of her joy seemed meaningless to her, a gleaming shell, or were around mechanical and void. Her body's actions shared not by her will. Always behind this strange divided life, her spirit, like a sea of living fire, possessed her lover and to his body clung. That's why I can't stop thinking about her. I added that. Once locked, embraced to guard its threatened mate, at night she woke through the slow silent hours, brooding on the treasure of his bosom and face, hung o'er the sleep-bound beauty of his brow, or laid her burning cheek upon his feet. I miss her so much. Waking at morn, her lips endlessly clung to his, unwilling ever to separate again or lose that honeyed drain of lingering joy, unwilling to lose his body from her breast. The warm, inadequate signs that love must use, intolerant of the poverty of time, her passion catching at the fugitive hours, willed the expense of centuries in one day, of prodigal love in the surf of ecstasy, or else she strove even in mortal time to build a little room for timelessness by the deep union of two human lives. Her soul secluded, shut into his soul. After all was given, she demanded still, even by his strong embrace unsatisfied, so long to cry, O tender Satyavan, O lover of my soul, give more, O love while yet thou canst. To her thou lovest, imprint thyself for every nerve to keep. That thrills to thee the message of my heart, for soon we part, and who shall know how long before the grand wheel in its monstrous round restore us to each other and our love. Too well she loved to speak a fateful word and lay her burden on his happy head. She pressed the outsurging grief back into her breast, to dwell within silent, unhelped, alone. But Satyavan sometimes half understood, or felt at least with the uncertain answer of our thought-blinded hearts, the unneutered need, the unplumbed abyss of her deep passionate want. All of his speeding days that he could spare, from labor in the forest hewing wood, and hunting food in the wild sylvan glades, and service to his father's sightless life, he gave to her and helped to increase the hours by the nearness of his presence and his clasp, and lavish softness of heart-seeking words, and the close beating felt of heart on heart. All was too little for her bottomless need. If in his presence she forgot a while, grief filled his absence with its aching touch. She saw the desert of her coming days, imagined in every solitary hour, although with a vain imaginary bliss, or a fiery union through death's door of escape. She dreamed of her body robed in funeral flame. She knew she must not clutch that happiness, to die with him and follow, seizing his robe across our other countries, travelers glad, into the sweet or terrible beyond. For those sad parents still would need her here to help the empty remnant of their day. Often it seemed to her the age's pain had pressed their quintessence into her single woe, concentrating in her a tortured world. Thus, in a silent chamber of her soul, cloistering her love to live with a secret grief, she dwelt like a dumb priest with hidden gods, unappeased by the wordless offerings of her days. Unappeased by the wordless offering of her days, lifting to them her sorrow like frankincense, her life the altar, herself the sacrifice. Yet ever they grew into each other more, until it seemed no power could rend apart. Since even the body's walls could not divide, for when he wandered all in the forest oft, her conscious spirit walked with him and knew his actions as if in herself he moved. He, less aware, thrilled with her from afar. Always the stature of her passion grew. Grief, fear became the food of mighty love. Increased by its torment, it filled the whole world. It was all her life, became her whole earth and heaven. That's my piggy deal. Although life born an infant of the hours, immortal, it walked, unslayable as the gods. Her spirit stretched measureless in strength divine, an anvil for the blows of fate and time, or tired of sorrow's passionate luxury. Grief's self became calm, dull-eyed, resolute, awaiting some issue of its fiery struggle, some deed in which it might forever cease. Victorious over itself in death and tears, the years now paused upon the brink of change. No more the storm sailed with stupendous wings, and thunder strode in wrath across the world. But still was heard a muttering in the sky, and rain dripped wearily through the mournful air, and gray, slow-drifting clouds shut in the earth. So her grief's heavy sky shut in her heart. A still self hid behind, but gave no light. No voice came down from the forgotten heights. Only in the privacy of its brooding pain, her human heart spoke to the body's fate. Period. End Canto 1. Ah, man. I feel that I'm separated from my one true love at the moment, and I know her consciousness is with me as I walk through the forest. I ride my bike with my puppy dog to the park. I know she floats over me like an eagle, watching over me, cheering on my growth, waiting for that fateful moment when we meet again and our souls and bodies intertwine infinitely, eternally. So, that being said, this is exciting. It's like going along with my life story, I feel. Next, we'll be reading Canto 2, A Parable of the Search for the Soul. The Parable of the Search for the Soul. Until then, be the change you wish to see in the world today. And know, love always wins. All one. Victory to the divine light.